Welcome to a Christmas special of the SBK Betting Podcast, and aren't we in for a treat? The festive period is always a cracker, but I have a feeling this might be even more than we bargained for, with horses unable to run over the last couple of weeks due to the big freeze. They're all now bursting to run, so we're hoping that we're going to have really big field sizes over this Christmas period. Ross Millar and Tom Collins join me as ever, looking really festive indeed. Thank you, TC, for finding the smallest Santa hat I have ever seen. I'm sure that you've nicked that from your poor baby. He's probably very excited about his Christmas festivities, and so I hope that you're going to give that right back to him after this.
Yeah, 100%. It's either the smallest hat or I've got the biggest head. But no, I have nothing Christmassy, so I had to steal his hat. He looks a lot better in it than me. But look, I'm really looking forward to Boxing Day racing. I'm ready to get stuck in, Jess.
Yeah, and Ross Millar, or as I should correctly say, Ross, Merry Christmas, Millar. This is your favourite time of the year, I know.
Yeah, I do love a bit of, well, I've got two kids and they love Christmas, so that sort of dragged you along. But as I was saying to TC, new parent, rule 101 is they can have Christmas Day, Dad gets Boxing Day, control of the TV, and we got some great racing to look forward to, because we have had bad weather that appears to have followed you around on racing TV cameras. Lots of frozen ground, lots of horses unable to run. The upside of that is they all run over Christmas, so we get competitive racing, big fields, lots of it, and can't wait to get stuck into it.
Yeah, it's obviously not just Boxing Day, 27th as well, the Welsh National, which we'll get stuck into. Yes, I'm going to be at Wincanton. I just hope that I'm not going to be a curse on that racetrack and that we can get racing there as well. Must mention that I am sorry, Tom, that the world teased you with that one-off all-weather special, and to cruelly take it away from you at the 11th hour was really heartbreaking. But we do actually have some all-weather action over the Christmas period, and I'm sure that you've got a few horses up your sleeve for that, for some of the best action that we get on the synthetic surface as well. But let's get cracking. We have got 4 Grade 1s at Kempton on Boxing Day. Because of all the called off racing, the non-walk hurdle's been rerouted. We're going to talk about that and the implications of having it at Kempton as opposed to Ascot now a little later on. But we're going to start, as customary, with the King George. This is the big one. This is always on Boxing Day at Kempton, and it's a race with so much history to it and an illustrious roll of honour as well. It will be at 2:30, the King George, and we will be looking forward to seeing Brave Man's Game, 13-8 favourite. L'Empresse currently 2-1, Hitman 9-2, Envoyland 7-1, Frodon 16s, as well as Eldorado Allen. Royal Guy is going. He's 20s. Not sure about Hoy Senior. He's got other options. Miller's Bank is the outsider at 50-1. Right. Well, if I'm pretty certain the majority of these hold their ground. It's a good King George without being excellent. Obviously, we've got betting dominated by horses coming into open company for the first time. The lead players already showing their hand and what they can do against their elders. TC, what have you taken away from the runs of Brave Man's Game in the Charlie Hall and L'Empresse in the rehearsal? What do you think we learned from that going into this race?
Well, I thought both were really impressive. L'Empresse had to carry a big weight, jumped very well. Charlie George was fantastic on him. He looked like he needed the run. He wasn't 100% ready to go, because we know this horse has so much class. And he didn't put a huge distance between himself and the runner-up and third, but he still won decisively. Meanwhile, Brave Man's Game put up a career best performance in the Charlie Hall based on Racing Post ratings. He earned an RPI of 168. He jumped phenomenally well. And albeit Hoy Senior didn't perform, which he never seems to do until April, which is like a factor that I try and focus in on when I bet him, because Aintree and April was the only time for me with the Hoy Senior. Brave Man's Game still really surprised me with the way he went about the victory. And actually his chasing, his jumping over fences has definitely improved. I don't think there's a better chaser in terms of fluency and ability to always clear every single twig on a fence than Brave Man's Game. He's phenomenal long, phenomenal short. He's just a really good jumper. We've already touched on this race in the Ultimate Jumps preview, if you guys at home watched that back in September or October, whenever we filmed it. And at that time, I put up Brave Man's Game, and nothing has happened in the interim to suggest that I should be switching my allegiance. Brave Man's Game just has been aimed at this race, which some of his rivals haven't. A flat track that favours speed, perfect. Good to soft ground, perfect. Jumping test, perfect. Paul Nicholls has had a great record in this race. Back-to-back victories for Silvignaco Conti and Clanders Obo. I think Brave Man's Game is beginning to be better than both of those two horses. So I'm happy to side with him despite the short odds.
Okay, well, you know your trends. You love your stats as well. Trends haven't been kind to favourites over the last 5 years, have they? Also, interestingly, 8-year-olds have been a lot better favoured than 7-year-olds. I've had a look at that as well. They have a really good record. But as you say, the trends have always been in the favour of Paul Nicholls, who you'd imagine has got this race set out for him from a long way out because he's not really necessarily a Cheltenham horse. I'm interested to hear what you think about what you said, and we'll just ask you again about the reasons why you haven't seen anything that's sparked your interest outside of Brave Man's Game, because there's a good list of horses in here. Obviously, L'Impresse showed that he probably needed the run, but what about Hitman? What about Envoy Land? What about the others? Do they need to improve again for you to feel like they can even get close to Brave Man's Game?
Well, Envoy Land was a phenomenal hurdler, but when he's gone over fences, he's been a bit inconsistent. Last time out, he produced a really good effort, and you always have to respect an Irish-trained horse in a race like this, especially from Henry de Bromhead's yard. But Henry de Bromhead's still not really firing on all cylinders. He's had a couple of winners, but not too many. I think Envoy Land just needs to prove his consistency for me to back him. L'Impresse, as I touched on, is a major player. I just think Brave Man's Game is going to be better suited to the track, while Hitman, he was impressive last time, but he was almost handed that victory from the outset. No horse challenged him. He just jumped around and won with ease. Yes, you can't take anything away from what he beat, but also it was just basically a piece of work. Prior to that, I didn't really like his resolution. I thought Hitman was a horse that would tend to throw it away in a finish. Maybe he's gone over that bridge, gone over that hurdle now. But still, I think Brave Man's Game is just more talented.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. This is a race where we can't disregard anything, can we, Ross? Last year, we had a shock winner with Tornado Flyer, really given a fabulous ride by Danny Mullins, who just tactically was so astute. I was very disappointed, actually, not to see him back in this race because he ran such a big one last time out. We've only got the one Irish horse with Envoy Land, which is a bit disappointing. So it lacks that little bit of flavour. But as I mentioned, we have had shock results in the race for the last 4 years. Do you think we will have another?
Well, we got the shock result last year because of riding tactics. One rider in that race read the race right and he won it. Everyone else got it wrong because there was just a far too hard a pace in the middle part of the race. There is the potential for that to happen again. I mean, I think you have to say that, Gavin Sheehan clearly caught the wrath of Paul Nicholls. I can't think Harry Cobden and Bryony Frost fully escaped it. And they return on similar horses again. Brave Man's Game is going to want to go forward. Frodon is going to want to go forward. L'Impresse is going to want to be forward. Ahoy Senor in there with cheap pieces is going to go forward. You would imagine that Paul Nicholls over bit of Christmas dinner with Bryony and Harry is going to lay down the law and make it very clear that they don't take each other on, but they've still got to ride their horses in a positive way to see them to best effect. I think Harry Cobden's been brilliant on Brave Man's Game. He sort of uses jumping, gets to the front and then drops anchor, I think, for a good few furlongs in the middle part of a race. And I have this suspicion, I've had it all along, and it's an opinion, you can be right, you can be wrong. I'm not ever sure how much this horse has got left at the back of a race, and I think he's conserving his energy very well through the middle part of the race. I don't think that can happen here. I don't think Charlie Deutsch, particularly Bryony Frost, is going to let that happen. And I think jumping is key. The thing to point out is L'Impresse at Ascot and at Sandown jumped out to his left. Kempton is a much sharper track. Now, for my money, L'Impresse is the best horse in this race by a distance. I think he's going to go really close in the Gold Cup on a left-handed galloping track. Sharp right-handed, I just wonder whether if he starts jumping out to his left, particularly given that Frodon adjusts to his left, he shifts a little bit left, and horses are herd animals. I think you could perhaps see Charlie Deutsch getting shoved a little bit left. Envoy Allen jumps left. And then you've got the prospect of Ahoy Senor, who will probably be down the rail. I mean, he's a horse with immense ability. As someone the other day, he's got the engine of a Rolls Royce, but unfortunately at the moment he's jumping like one too. In cheek pieces, which they've mentioned, I don't see how cheek pieces help him. I know they're going to school him. I think today they're going to school him in cheek pieces, and decide whether they put him on or not. But for me, his jumping doesn't look like a lack of attention. It looks like a lack of coordination, and I don't see cheap pieces helping that. If anything, I could see it making it worse. So I'm already on Hitman, as I put him up at an anti-post price in the preview pod that TC mentioned. I don't want to go back in at that price. So I just looked to take a view with two that are going to get opposing rides. Frodon has got assured stamina. He's the only one in this field that's won over 3.25 miles, and he won over 3.25 miles at Cheltenham on soft ground. He's perhaps not the horse he was, but I think his jumping is not as bulletproof as Brave Man's Games, but it's pretty much there. I think Bryony can ride him how she likes because there's no expectation. So I want him on side at a decent price. And then the other one, which is probably a bit wild and a bit fanciful, is Miller's Bank at 50-1, because he's going to be ridden out the back exactly the same as Tornado Flyer was last year. And he's been crying out for this step up to 3 miles. He was outpaced in the Peterborough last time, finished to good effect behind a decent yardstick pick Dory. Yes, he has to improve, and he's probably not going to improve the 10 plus pound that he needs to improve to win this. But Tornado Flyer, we would have said the same thing about him this time last year. He'd be ridden to pick up the pieces, and if there is just a pace collapse where everyone tries to go forward a bit too early, I want him on side as well.
Yeah, would you not be slightly nervous about his jumping? He's not been. But the good thing about Tornado Fly, we knew he had it in him. He was just being run at the wrong trip a little bit, wasn't he? But with Miller's Bank, his jumping just needs to improve, doesn't it? Just a touch.
Yeah, you'll probably know your fate after the first 2 or 3 fences, because it's about rhythm with him, and you're absolutely right. You know, it could well get him at it early because they will go quick early. But I just didn't think he was a 50-1 shot against these. I think he's got a lot more ability than we've seen. And 3 miles, he's open to any amount of improvement.
Okay, it's a really valid point about the track and the nature of it. The speed, it's more of a test of speed. It's a tight track, and you'd imagine the likes of Royal Guy, who's similar in physique as a horse, is going to just struggle a little bit, especially being off the track for so long. It's a brave route, and the horse is obviously going to be scheduled in for a Peter Marsh again. But is that possibly why you might dismiss him as well?
Yeah, and also Charlie Deutsch, I think we can say safely, is going to ride Long Presse. I don't think Royal Pagaille is an easy ride. I think Charlie Deutsch does a very good job on him. I don't know who will take over. Shane Quinlan has been riding a lot for Venetia and rides very similar to Charlie. He's very good to a fence, rides with a good length to leg. You'd almost be more comfortable if it was someone like that that's presumably schooled him a fair bit at home than someone just jumping on first time. I don't think he's an easy ride, and I think he needs soft ground. Yeah,
Tom Scudamore has been noted. I heard Joe Chambers mention Tom Scudamore if he's available. He's obviously one on him, but I take that case. I think I love Royal Pagaille. He's got he's a real favourite of mine, but I just don't know if it's today. If this is going to be the day for him. I think it's important to give all of these horses a good mention, because it's a trappy enough event, but I think there is a bit of pace around, and it is important to look at horses that will come from the back. I'm going to give Long Presse a go. I don't think there are many positives in his camp at all. I don't think the track's right for him. I think his jumping's going to need to improve, but I just think obviously he was running in a handicap off the big weight, and the pace of that race was probably less than this one. And I think a better race is going to see him to better effect. As Ross has mentioned, he's undoubtedly the leader from a Gold Cup perspective in this field. And I just think that his class could just prevail in what is quite a difficult race to really work out. But Paul Nicholls has had this earmarked for Brave Man's Game for a long time, and he's got such a good record, and you just have a feeling that he's one of his horses is going to run a big race. Frodon for Ross at 16-1, with Miller's Bank at 50s, Long Presse 2-1, Brave Man's Game 13-8. What did you put him up as, Tom, anti-post?
I think it was 9-4, which looks pretty good right now.
It certainly does. Right, we move on to the long walk hurdle, the second of the grade ones that we're going to look at. Rerouted from Ascot, lost because of the frost, and this is going to make it really interesting. It's helpful for some, not for others potentially. What's good is that we've still got our team of horses lining up that we were expecting from Ascot, and I think that's it's good that the likes of Paisley Park is still going to give it a go. We've got Champ in there as well, and they're matching up against each other from the last time. But we've also got some interesting contenders, including Goshan. Botex has not so sleepy's in this, but it's likely that he's going to go to the Christmas hurdle. Ross, start with you. Main difference from your perspective with Kempton to Ascot. What do you really see? How do you see this benefiting some to others?
Well, I think this is it's a race I have an opinion in, but I don't think I'll be putting any money on it. Well, I mean, I think the first thing to say is it's a week later. I think that helps Champ, because I got the distinct impression that Nicky Henderson was slightly concerned about the relatively quick turnaround. Thinks Champ's a fresher horse. Now, in the grand scheme of things, a week isn't going to make him all that much more fresh, but it's certainly not going to do any harm. It's a sharper track, and I just think if you watch Champ's races, he does seem to be a strong traveller, which is going to suit him against Paisley Park. I think you have to consider Miranda. You know, she's officially rated 146, so with the £7 mare allowance, that puts her on 153. So she's got about £7 to find. But I'm not sure what she won last time. I think the race slightly fell apart, and she had her own way in a small run of field, admittedly with a bit of course and distance form. The old boy Goshen. I mean, every time I see a race with Goshen in it, right-handed, I'm straight away drawn to thinking, oh yes, this will be for Goshen. And he has got 2 mile flat form, which suggests he wants a trip. But when you watch those runs back, I think he's absolutely on vapours at the end of 2 miles on the flat. I'd be surprised if 3 miles is his flag. I think you can just add the fact that he's not a 2 miler, he's not a 3 miler, just to his list of quirks that Goshen has. I think he's probably 2.5 mile on very soft ground. Botox has, I mean, did me a big favour at the start of the year. But again, I'm not sure he has the gears for this. But like you say, not so slippy he's going to go. So by default, I just think Champ is going to have more gears and travel better than Paisley Park. Probably goes further clear than he did on their last meeting at Newbury than Paisley Park. Paisley Park will try and peg him back and probably will finish up, close enough behind him, but probably not close enough. So I think it's Champs for the losing, but whichever one of these wins, you'd find a reason why.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more of a process of elimination type of theory, as opposed to something that's really jumping out of the page. Obviously, Champ has got his quirks, and as you rightly say, it's freshness that really seems to be the big key to him. Last year, when he won first time out in the long walk hurdle, it was off the back of a summer break, as was when he won at Newbury last time in what was one of the races already of the season, the long distance hurdle against Paisley Park. TC, do you agree with that method? It's slightly, there's not a huge amount of depth there, or is there something that could throw a danger to Champ in what is a overall quite a weak division?
No, I completely agree with everything that you and Ross have said. I think Champ is definitely the most logical winner in here. Yes, he won the race last year at a different track. But I think the best piece of form when you're looking at this race is that last time out effort at Newbury in the long distance hurdle. He travelled beautifully on the front, long home straight at Newbury. That would have suited Paisley Park, and he still couldn't claw back Champ despite putting in a really spirited effort late on. Champ still proved too good. As Ross touched on, he has plenty of speed. Let's not forget that Champ won a bumper early in his career, over 2 miles. He also won the Cheltenham hurdle. This horse has loads of speed. He does stay, but he has lots of speed. So there are 2 different assets. And that's why he's so good in this division, because he's got a mix of both. He's a big 10-year-old. As you say, freshness is crucial. They've given him nearly 2 months off since his long distance hurdle victory. I just think he's by far the most likely winner. We just need Botox has to go forward, because, as you say, not so sleepy, looking like he's going to go elsewhere, means that there's a lack of pace in this race. And if there is no pace, I think actually that would disadvantage Paisley Park the most, obviously, because we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, this horse can hit a flat spot when the pace quickens. And if there's no speed up front and they immediately start sprinting, Paisley's going to be struggling, and that would suit Champ more than Paisley Park. But at the same time, you don't want to see a horse at relatively short odds in Champ pulling early on over a race of this distance. So I think if Botox Has goes on, I would definitely be looking at those in running markets, especially for Champ.
Yeah, Paisley Park, the lovable and wonderful stalwart for Emma Lavelle. You just got to think that potentially he's got it in him and you should never dismiss him. But she's even been conscious that Kempton just isn't the right track for him. So is that why I can see you nodding, TC? Is that why you would just find it difficult to get too confident with his chances?
Yeah, I mean, as you touched on, I don't think it's the right track. He's won around Ascot, and it's not too dissimilar from Kempton, as Ross has already touched on the factors that are different. But I think the lack of pace and also the fact he's only won once since December 2020. Yes, he's been a phenomenal horse over the years, 10-year-old now. Everyone loves Paisley Park, but at the same time, he's not a winning machine anymore. And when there's numerous factors going against him, as well as the fact he's taking on a horse who has beaten him recently, as well as in the past, I think it's hard to side with Paisley over Champ.
Yeah, look, it's these are quirky animals, aren't they? Champ, Goshen, both are. Paisley Park can be quirky as well. Miranda's one that's really got to improve. She's officially racing 146, and it's a different kind of test. This, but she's worth giving it a go. I just think she might be just slightly outclassed. We've seen a lot of these horses, thinking of Ollie's Wishes and the likes, that just in against the opposite sex, they just do struggle. I think that Botox has as a decent enough chance in what is quite an open race if Champ still feels that 2 weeks on he's not fresh enough. I'm happy to give him a go. Champ is 2-1 as we speak, but Botox has 5-1. He's a real improver. Now rated 150. This time last year he was rated 139. So he's just one that's steadily been coming up the ranks for the Moore team. Yes, this is another step up. Yes, he might not have the gears, but he might do as well. He's only a 6-year-old taking on these elders, and he's got the ability potentially just to be improving, whereas these others might just be at the top of their game or even just regressing just slightly. So I'm happy to give him a go in what I think is it's just a tricky old one with plenty of horses with question marks, and Botox has his 5-1. Okay, we'll move on now to the Welsh National. This is a proper betting heat. Love this race. I know that Ross Millar waits for this one all year as well, and had a horse earlier on in the season that he had tipped up, and it has been completely the price is gone, essentially. But we'll go on to that in a moment. Quick wave for Venetia Williams. The mare has got a penalty for her recent success. Is 92 favourite. The Galloping Bear, 6-1. The Big Dog 7s, Ask Me Early, 8-1. Pat's Fancy, Jericho Rock, and the Big Breakaway, all 10-1. Bigger prices for the rest. Ross, we'll start with you. The Big Dog. This horse has got Aidan Coleman jocked up. What are your thoughts on that? And I know that he was your anti-post tip. And what else do you like for the race now?
So, I mean, he's off 153 now. So it's effectively £5 well in, having gone up to a 158 for his Troy Town win. He'd be more confident if he was running off the mark of 148 that he ran off in the Troy Town. I think 3 miles is minimum trip for him, so I'm comfortable with all of those. I have no issue with Aidan Coleman. I would be more happy if Keith Donoghue had hopped on a Ryan Air flight and got over to ride him, because I think he's got on particularly well with him. But that's nothing against Aidan. I just always like partnerships of rider and horse. From my sport, I was better on horses I knew than horses I didn't. So for me, that's a slight negative. He's going to love the trip. The more rain, the better. But yeah, as you said, if anyone was listening to me back when I tipped him anti-post, you probably don't want to be going in at the same price again. I'm working on the basis there's going to be plenty of rain hitting Wales. And I have 2 to add to sort of my war team, if you like. Lord Dominial, who made an eye-catching return over 3 miles at Bangor, finishing 3 3/4 lengths behind Lemilos, who went on to win the Hennessy, the Coral Trophy. Lemilos is now 151. Lord Dominial was giving him £3 on that occasion, so I think a mark of 146 looks more than fair. He's another one that just can't have enough rain. It needs to be virtually unraceable, and that'll suit him. He thrives at Haydock, and Haydock soft, as we often say, is very different to soft anywhere else. I think if the rain comes for him, I think he's bang there. Richard Hobson in much better form this year. And then the other one is a horse I suspect might have just been laid out for this. Move the Chains from the Gary Moore team. Made hay last year with 4 wins at Haydock, starting off on a mark of 80. I mean, Christian Williams did a very good job getting him handicapped to that mark. He won off 80 and then is now up to 128 again on Lingfield. He's won on good to soft, but his best performance was on soft, all over 3 miles. He's not come off the bridle yet, really. He sometimes hits a bit of a flat spot in the middle of those 3-mile races where you look for a half a furlong that he's not going all that well, and then he sort of picks up and goes away again. So I think further still should suit him. Wouldn't surprise me if he was a gamble of the day and goes off maybe even single figures, because I think they've barely scratched the surface with him. And I'm guessing, but maybe he's been off the track for a reason, but I think they've probably tried to protect his mark for a big pot.
Yeah, he's gone up £11, 20 to 1 you can get at the moment. So it's surprising Christian Williams would let go of a horse that he's got well handicapped to try this kind of race. You'd imagine he would have thought that it could be in his locker. New owner as well, which is very well associated with Gary Moore, familiar colours. So yeah, he's an interesting one. Move the Chains, 20 to 1. We'll see how that develops, especially coming into the day of the race. You say there's usually good gambles that come off in this race, and we've seen this in times go by. And last year I Will Do It, and the year before Secret Reprieve, they were really well backed nearer the day, weren't they? So Welsh National's always fascinating. We see these gambles being pulled off. Tom, is there anything that you've looked through that takes your fancy that you think is well handicapped and has been set out for this race by their connections?
Well, this isn't my favourite race, I have to admit, which is probably why Ross, the great man, is going to be writing the betting preview for this on betting.ksbk.com. So if you need a little bit of a reminder of his selections, make sure to read that column. I will probably have a few quid on something in here because I'm going to be at Kempton on the 27th, and there's nothing quite like watching the Welsh National at Kempton over the festive period with a beer in hand. So I'll probably have a couple of quid on the Galloping Bear for trainer Ben Clark. This 9-year-old's been prolific in points. He's actually only run under rules 7 times. Only 4 of those have been over fences, and he crossed the line in front on each occasion. However, one of those races was taken away from him, the Grand National trial at Haydock, because he had a banned substance in his system. Nevertheless, he still won that race, unfairly, but still. That race over 3 miles, 4.5 furlongs was on bottomless ground. Lord and O'Neill, who Ross touched on, didn't even get home. That's how bottomless it was. Only 3 horses finished. The Galloping Bear won. Second was Bristol de Mai, a Haydock regular. So that kind of tells you what that race was like to watch and to run in. But the Galloping Bear did it. He's got all heart, determination, character, what you need to win a national. The fact he's remains lightly raced, I think, is a big positive. And he's only run once this year, which came over hurdles, which clearly suggests they were just trying to give him a pipe opener to get him ready for his early season target. So the Galloping Bear will be my selection. But as I say, Ross has more expertise in a race like this than me.
Ross, I'm assuming before Christmas and the kids take you to one side that you've got a profile for every single horse for this race, and you've gone through it with a fine tooth comb, and that's what we can read on your blog. But the Galloping Bear has always been a horse that you've had a soft spot for. I'm pretty certain you put him up in the past as well. Why have you left him out?
Yes, I tipped him for this race last year, just a year ahead of myself, and he was a non-runner. And then he did do a nice job. I think it was at Lingfield, wasn't it, when he won first time. Price, Jess. I think he's short enough. I think he's got a great chance. I think Ben Clark probably has a bit of a point to prove. I think he's a very capable trainer, and I think he's a nice horse. His jumping can be a bit hit and miss. I perhaps would have preferred to have a bit of match practice, but he's a real live contender. Yeah,
he definitely is. As you say, the price is 6 to 1. That's short enough for a Welsh National, but it's all right for TC. Punitive is the one that I'm going to suggest. This is a really intriguing horse. Gigginstown House stud, when they did a dispersal earlier on in the year, sold this horse from Henry de Bromhead's £4,000. He was picked up by Gordon Elliott. And they've managed to rejuvenate his jumping, which is always good to see. Gordon Elliott is really good at doing this. He's done this with several horses. Jungle Pros is one of them that I'm going to pick out as a horse to watch for the winter period as well. That he's just sort of brought them from yards. He's seen that they've got ability, but he's just ironed out some quirks. And this horse, it's not been absolutely straightforward. He unseated, and there was a mistake on his penultimate run at Navan, but he made amends for that last time out at Fairy House and showed himself to be clearly on the right side of the handicapper, and then the handicapper made amends to that, and he's gone up, and he's now got an official rating of 137. But I still think that's quite a nice mark. He's got a £4 penalty for that win for this race. I still think that's quite a nice mark. And Gordon Elliott, if he does declare him, I can't see why he wouldn't do. He likes to plot things out for horses like this. He is in the Paddy Power Chase at Leopardstown on the 27th of December. But if they do go for it, he's just got quite a nice profile for this race. And I like 20-1. So that's a look at the Welsh National. We have had so many opportunities for other races that we could look at. Obviously, the Christmas Hurdle will be the one that everyone is going to really be looking forward to seeing. Constitution Hill back again, and although it's no betting proposition, we hope as a racing fraternity that he does the business and keeps the dream alive to be one of the greats that we've seen of recent times. So that's something not to miss. But there's plenty of others, and it gives us the opportunity to go around the room and get a selection from Ross first in terms of a nap and a next best, and it can be anywhere over the festive period.
So, plenty to choose from, and I tried to get both selections that they only had one entry over Christmas. So hopefully you get a run for our money. The 105 at Market Raisin. Accidental Legend for Fergal O'Brien showed much improved form, went up to 2 mile 4 in just his second handicap start last time. The runner-up, Colonial Empire, has won since, and by the time you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to it, might well have won as he runs on this afternoon, Thursday afternoon, and is well fancied. The extra half furlong here will suit, as will the long straight, but he travelled very well, which I think is important for a horse around Market Raisin. He's a half-brother to Liston Varner, who this yard had was a very promising novice chaser before sadly departing, and a half-brother to Cloth Cap as well. So stamina is everything. He'll improve for further than this still, I think, but he's off a very light mark, and I think he'll make it 2 on the bounce. And okay, then brilliant. The next best is from Wetherby on the 27th, the Castleford Chase at 2:45. No Risk They Flow was a really impressive course and distance winner last time, which took his record to 3 from 3 at Wetherby. It is essentially has soft and heavy ground, so that would be a caveat. If there's not soft ground all over, he wouldn't be a bet for me. He's up £7, but that wouldn't have stopped him last time. He's a strong stayer at this trip. I think he'll probably get a bit further in time. His only entry of the entire Christmas period from Ollie Murphy's yard would suggest very strongly that this has been the target since he won that race.
It's a good point about the weather. It looks like we're going to get a lot of rain over the next few days, which is great. We want proper national hunt ground, and we'll see how that affects the horses that we will be seeing over the course of the festive period, but it is worth keeping an eye out on. So thanks to Ross for his nap and his next best, and well researched to make sure that they're definitely, we hope, going to run, as well as obviously we're just a day out from some of the declarations for Boxing Day, and then moving on, we'll be getting them over the next few days for the rest of the period. Okay, Tom, I'm certain there is something from On the All Weather involved with this. I'd be very disappointed if there isn't. What have you found?
Yeah, you'll have to wait for the next best for the all-weather selection. But we'll go for the nap first. Ross's nap is at 1:05. Mine's at 1 o'clock. So that's a perfect 5-minute period, hopefully, to land a good nap double while eating the Boxing Day leftovers. My nap is Sporting Mike in the 1 o'clock at Wetherby. It's a 2 mile, 3.5 furlong handicap hurdle. Now, there are 2 horses in this race that I think are really well treated. The first of them is Rebecca Menzies' Curly Finger, who is a really good jumper for such an inexperienced horse. One nice at Hexham, 2 runs back. Last time out, I wasn't super impressed with his finishing effort, but he travelled through the race like a horse, much better than his mark. However, I think there's a horse better treated, and that is Sporting Mike. This 5-year-old was bought for 65k after winning a point in November last year. He's had 4 runs under rules since, ran in a bumper, didn't show up, had a wind up, then ran over hurdles, again, didn't really perform. But his penultimate effort at Bangor was really eye-catching when he finished 3rd, and he improved on that last time up at Southall, an easy success. Sporting Mike won by 5.5 lengths that day, but he didn't even engage 4th gear, let alone 5th gear. And as they hit the line, this horse was really finding his stride. You could see the jockey was like, whoa, we don't want to win by too far. I'm going to pull you back a little bit. Now, he was hit with a £10 rise for that victory, but I still think that's perfectly lenient. Sporting Mike's now rated 111, but I think he has the potential to be a 130 horse in time, and I'd be disappointed if he lost the 1 o'clock at Wetherby. Now, my next best is on the all-weather, Jess, you'll be happy to hear. And it's a horse called Crimson King. So this horse is entered twice. I was hoping he was just going to be entered once, but he's entered twice. So he's in the 5:20 at Wolverhampton on Boxing Day. If he doesn't run there, then he's going to run in the 5:30 at Wolverhampton on the 27th. Hopefully the 27th, so I can watch it while I'm at Kempton after a few shandies. Crimson King is by Kingman, out of a 2-time listed Galileo mare. So a beautiful pedigree, just hasn't really produced that on the track. Though I am told, reliably, I hope, that his homework has been really good throughout his career. Crimson King's only won 5 of his 48 starts, but he's an all-weather specialist now. He's developed into loving synthetic surfaces. He's got wins at Kempton, Lingfield, and here at Wolverhampton. His last 2 successes have come off marks of 69 and 75. Now he's back down to a mark of 72, so he's treated to win a race of this nature. I thought he showed some of that old spark on his last time out effort after a long summer break at Lingfield. Now he's entered into a race, second time up off the layoff. He's going to be race fit. I think it's very winnable, and he should be a tasty opening price. Be careful that Crimson King is a horse that tends to be backed. He's trained by Mick Appleby, and when those horses are ready to roll, they tend to attract some money. So if you want to get involved on Crimson King, look for the opening show on either Boxing Day or the 27th. I think he ran on the 27th last year, so that might be the more likely option. But in either race, I'm happy to play Crimson King.
Yeah, you're right. Mick Appleby, they know how to punt their horses when they fancy them, and he'll have a busy Christmas period. His horses are in good form, and he's got plenty to run on the all-weather, as always. Okay, thanks to TC for a nap and next best. I've cheated a little bit because whereas Ross is very diligent and does all his homework and makes sure that he's got one horse with one race, all my horses have a mixture of races, and I don't know exactly where they go. Some of them have got one target, but some of them don't. And they're more horses to watch because they could be ones for the future as well. I have been reliably informed that Quai de Paris for Willie Mullins is a horse that we should be keeping an eye on. I think I mentioned it in a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Now, finally, he's made an entry for him. And Willie Mullins is one that likes to give horses multiple entries, but it's only one. And he's in on the 26th of December at Limerick in a maiden hurdle. You would imagine that that they like to stick to that as well, because he was meant to run on the 1st of December, but he was a reserve, so it was unfortunate not to be able to take that up. And he looks like he's got a nice profile for potentially a Supreme or a Ballymore kind of horse in the future. Another horse that's running on the 26th of December, where I'll be at Wincanton, which you can watch on Racing TV Extra, because you will not hear me at all on the main channel as we have 8 meetings. But Edith Elton is a horse that is just been a real star for Robert Wolford, who's just striking a bit of form. He had a nice winner at Taunton the other day. And this horse is £7 higher than when he ran in the Lord Stallbridge Gold Cup last year, where he was unlucky in defeat, really. He might go there. He might go in the 2 mile 4 furlong race a little later on in the afternoon. Wherever he goes, he was so eye-catching at Exeter last time. He was doing all his best work late on. I think that he's been teed up perfectly for a good run over Wincanton, whichever option Robert Wolford puts him into. He's clearly still, he's ran to a level, I thought last time, where he's still he's able to win off this mark over 100, and I think it's 117 now. Yes, that's right. So that's that one. And then 2 more for you. It's 2 mares. Jungle Pros, I mentioned earlier, of Gordon Elliott. She has been a real sensation since joining that yard. She's in at Limerick on the 27th of December, and she's also in a Per Temps Network qualifier race on the 28th. But she's another one that Gordon Elliott has just done masterminds with. She started off with a mark of 85 with him. She's now on a rating mark of 137. And I think she's just a horse that he's managed to work out. She was previously with Nick Gifford and wasn't doing a huge amount for him, but she's doing wonders for Gordon Elliott. And the final one is Between Waters. I've been waiting for this filly. I think she was in my Jumpers to Follow, Horses to Follow podcast. Nikki Henderson in the colours of Doreen Tabor, daughter of Walk in the Park. I've heard words about her throughout the course of the summer. She's currently 16-1 for the Mares Novices Hurdle at Cheltenham. She'll be starting life at Chepstow, I think, according to her entries on the 27th of December, and I'm really excited to see what she can do. So that is 4 horses for you. Those are some Christmas presents for all our listeners. Thanking you for being with us on over the course of the year. Hopefully we've got plenty for you to get your teeth into. A reminder that new SBK customers can get £30 of free bets by betting £10. Worth doing for all the punting that hopefully you'll be enjoying over the festive period. A reminder to subscribe to whatever podcast channel you listen to, YouTube as well, where you can find us, and make sure that you read all the content. Ross Millar will be delving into the Welsh National. That is not to be missed. Some good Christmas bedtime reading. It leaves me to say a very Merry Christmas to you, TC, and to your loved ones, and to you, Ross, and hope you have a wonderful time. And we'll be back to review all of our winners that we found over the Christmas period. So very Merry Christmas to you all.